Cutter Top 10, Cutter Top 10. You know you liked it a lot. Time to see who is the best and the worst that's left. You know, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, NASCAR, wrestling. If I have to, so please join me. Why don't you read? This is Cutter's Top 10. Hey there, Heather, ho there! It's Jeff, Cutter, Diamond. We're ready to rumble! Oh. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff, Cutter, Diamond with a block of top 10s starting today on Saturday, May 14th, 2016. Friday the 13th had come and gone. Raptors unfortunately lost, so there will be game 7 tomorrow afternoon in Toronto. Thank goodness for that. Blue Jays won 5-0. R.A. Dickey actually won. I was actually shocked. I know they're playing in about 20 minutes. Let's see here. I saw the Yankees beat the White Sox. I know that, I guess, yeah, Monday, Oklahoma City and Golden State start their NBA semifinals. Cleveland will wait till Tuesday, because the winner of tomorrow afternoon's game between Miami and Toronto will face the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, anyway, not much sports to talk about. No hockey tonight, which pisses me off. Well, I know that I have to vow not to watch any live hockey, except if it goes to overtime and all that. And there's no basketball, so what are we going to watch? Going to have to watch the MLB Network and watch baseball, which is fine. So anyway, this is not a top 10, it's a top 15. The first top list is the top 15 lopsided trades in NHL history. Number 15, Alex Stojanov for Marcus Naslund. This is very lopsided. People forgot that Marcus Naslund actually started out as a Penguins farmhand. Stojanov would be a big draft pick in 1991 for the Canucks, but they traded him to Pittsburgh for Marcus Naslund. Penguins thought Naslund was too soft and needed punch in their lineup, so they got Stojanov. Naslund, unfortunately, for Pittsburgh, was Vancouver's all-time leading scorer before the Sedin twins both passed him. And Pittsburgh didn't do anything with Stojanov, who only scored 6 points in 45 games. And then they lost Lemieux to retirement in 97. It was just terrible how the Penguins dropped. Number 14, Marcel Dion and Bart Crashley to LA for Terry Harper, Dan Maloney, and a second-round pick. The Red Wings were in a terrible era. They were called the Dead Wings back in the mid-70s, early 80s, because they just couldn't get anything done. Due to a contract dispute with Marcel Dion, the Wings decided to trade their star, who had been around for 4 years, and Crashley to LA for a couple of decent players, Harper, Maloney, and a second-round pick. Dion, for the next 14 seasons, would score 1,039 I did my math wrong. In 1,039 games, he scored 1,405 points. So basically, almost 100 points a season average. And the Wings lived through the 1980s. Number 13, Jaromir Jagr for Chris Beach, Michael Civic, and Russ Lubitschek. After helping the Penguins win back-to-back Stanley Cups and thinking that, the Penguins were getting in better, Jagr decided to ask for a trade. The Penguins agreed to Jagr's demand and traded him to Washington for Beach, Civic, and Lubitschek. Combined, those three scored 13 goals for Pittsburgh, while Jagr scored more than 500 points after the fact, after he left Pittsburgh. After 2 years, the Caps decided to trade him to the Rangers for Anson Carter. Jagr became New York's captain and scored 123 points in the first year in 05-06, and Anson Carter only lasted 19 games. It's just amazing. And Jagr is still active this year. He's actually second in points, all-time behind Gretzky, and he's playing one more season at least. Amazing. Number 12, Ron Francis and Alf Samuelson for John Colin, Sarah Zalewski, and Jeff Parker. It's amazing. This is one of the biggest lopsided trades in trade deadline history. During the March 5th, 1991 trade deadline, the Hartford Whalers decided to trade Ron Francis, who was their heart and soul for 10 years, and Alf Samuelson, who was a bang-bang defenseman, to get John Cullen, who was a decent scorer, Sarli Solapsky, who was a so-so defenseman, and who the heck is Jeff Parker? Hartford was actually unsure of Samuelson as an enforcer and decided to ship him and Ron Francis in that trade. Hartford would sink further and further into depression before Carolina picked them up in a franchise move. Meanwhile, Alf would actually be key to the Penguins winning back-to-back Stanley Cups and one of the most feared enforcers on the ice. He did, in fact, injure Cam Neely's knee, if you remember, in Game 2 of the 91 Eastern Conference Finals. So, his hit was dirty on Cam Neely, but you can't argue with results. So anyway, Ron Francis would continue dominating the league as well, and he had good number 2 center in the league. He actually ended up with the second most assists in NHL history, Francis did, only trailing Wayne Gretzky. Number 11, Roberto Luongo for Todd Bertuzzi. Dave Notice was actually determined to put the team back on top after inheriting the Vancouver Canucks. He decided to pick up from Florida star goalie Roberto Luongo. In exchange, Luongo, Lucas Krajicek, and a 6th-round pick. In exchange for the Canucks giving Florida Todd Bertuzzi, Alex Old, and Brian Allen. Yeah, Alex Old's days were numbered. I don't know why. I guess they had Cloutier still somewhere. And, of course, Todd Bertuzzi, of course, fading because of that in Steve Mortensen in 2004. Luongo was the top-notch goalie Vancouver needed. And, ironically, in his first ever playoff game, the game went to quadruple overtime when Henrik Sedin scored with about a minute plus left in that period against Dallas. It's just amazing. Luongo got himself a gold medal at Vancouver, of all places, ironically enough, and led the Canucks to the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. Unfortunately, his bad luck in Boston sunk the Canucks because Canucks won games 1, 2, and 5 on home turf, but didn't win game 7 on home turf. Bertuzzi was with 5 teams since. Jeez, that's just amazing. The Panthers actually have Luongo now. They required him from Vancouver because Luongo didn't want to be in the 2 goalie system with Corey Schneider, and Vancouver traded away the wrong goalie. They should have traded Luongo instead of Corey Schneider. So the Devil Dogs. So yeah, Luongo's done pretty well for the Panthers, although they should have won the first round against the Cupcakes. Number 10, Patrick Sharp for Matt Ellison. It's amazing. I didn't even realize that Patrick Sharp was traded. So anyway, the Flyers picked up Matt Ellison because they needed to spark the Flyers. So they decided to ship a underperforming Patrick Sharp and Eric Melange to Chicago. Sharp would become a key component to Chicago's revival and help the Blackhawks to 3 Stanley Cup victories. And ironically enough, the first Stanley Cup victory he got was against the team that traded him, the Flyers. Number 9, Phil Esposito. There were a couple of big trades with Phil Esposito. In 1967, he was a rising star in Chicago, but he badmouthed GM Tommy Ivan, and he couldn't put up a playoff goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup semifinals. So Tommy Ivan decided, I gotta get rid of him. So he traded him, along with Ken Hart Sr. and Fred Stanfield, to the Bruins for Gilles Millerot, Pitt Martin, and Jack Norris. Pitt Martin was a respected name in Chicago, but of course Boston got the best of it. They even did well with Ken Hodge Sr. back in the 1970s. Esposito averaged 130 points a season, won the MVP twice, and the Bruins won 2 Stanley Cups. Boston decided to trade him in November 1975, to the New York Rangers for 3 players: Carol Fadney, Brad Park, and Joe Sanducci. It's amazing how the Rangers were willing to part with Brad Park for Phil Esposito. Esposito would actually help the Rangers to the Cup Finals in '79 and remained a good player. Number 8, Max Bentley for the Flying Forts. Chicago thought they were going to get some quality players in '47 by trading away Max Bentley, who with his brother Doug, and for a few games, their brother Reg, was a top line for the Blackhawks. The Leafs traded away Gus Bondar, Bud Poyle, Gay Stewart, Ernie Dickens, and Bob Golem. So basically, Chicago was getting 5 players for one. Unfortunately, injuries and bad coaching kept the Chicago lineup from turning into a dynasty. And Max Bentley, he helped Toronto win 3 Stanley Cups in 4 seasons. Amazingly. It's just amazing. Number 7, the Eric Lindros trade. Now, everybody knows that Eric Lindros was this great junior player from the Oshawa Generals and well hated in the Diamond household for what he did to the Kitchener Rangers 1990 Memorial Cup final. Thanks a lot. So anyway, Quebec had a bad year in 91, so obviously Quebec would get the number 1 pick. Unfortunately, Lindros hated Quebec because of the language and the city, and thinking that he could be better off at more suitable in a better off NHL market. And he had helicopter parents, that pisses me off even more, and didn't want to play for Quebec. A year later, the NHL, Lindros said he wouldn't play for Quebec, so he decided to go back to junior, and he even played for the Canada Olympic team that took silver in 1992. Basically, the NHL told Quebec to quit stalling, you have to trade him. And it was a trade. A massive trade that involved Peter Forsberg, Mike Ricci, 3 other players, 3 first-round picks, and $15 million. 3 other players, one ended up being Ron Hextall. Well, Ron Hextall, Kenny Huffman, and Steve Duchesne, I guess, were the players. 3 first-round picks and $15 million. This was just amazing. The Flyers thought they were going to get a better player. Quebec went from the second worst team in 92 to the playoffs, and within inches of actually shocking Montreal in the Stanley Cup playoffs that year, because Quebec was actually higher up than Montreal and had a 2-0 series lead on them before choking that away. Unfortunately, Quebec, even though they were doing successful even in 95, they were sold to investors in Denver. And in the first season in Colorado, they won the Stanley Cup with 9 players of that team being acquired thanks to the Lindros deal. Because if memory serves me right, one of the first round picks ended up going from, I think it was for Kovalenko or Kamenz for Kovalenko, and then he was shipped off to Montreal for Patrick Roy. Well, I don't know the whole thing about it without reading the book about it. So anyway, Porter Lindros was injury prone, and that killed the Flyers. Number 6. Scott Niedermayer for Tom Krugers. Now, this was just hurtful for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but you couldn't predict what could have happened. Thinking Tom Krugers was the best bet to be a power play quarterback for the Leafs, the Leafs decided to give up their first-round pick in 1991 to the Devils to get Krugers. That was in 1989. Krugers scored 55 points in 89 games for the Leafs. Not bad, but not stellar. And then in 1991, the Leafs ended up being, I believe, 3rd. The second worst team. Well, they had drafted 3rd because San Jose was drafted 2nd. And Devils got the number 3 pick. And guess who they got? Scott freaking Niedermayer. 3 Stanley Cups with the Devils. He even won a cup with the Ducks in 2007. So he won 4 cups and played in so many All-Star games and won 2 gold medals for Canada. What might have been for Leaf fans. Number 5, the Wayne Gretzky trade. It's a trade that transformed the whole NHL. And everyone says, of course, everyone in the league was like, if Wayne Gretzky could get traded, I could get traded too. Gretzky led the Oilers to 4 Stanley Cups. His 4th was 1988, just before the trade. Unfortunately, thanks to Peter Pocklington and having a lot of business problems, even having the Oilers as collateral for one loan, Gretzky was traded to Los Angeles. Well, the move fit perfectly because Wayne Gretzky was marrying Hollywood actress Janet Jones at the time. So anyway, the Oilers traded Gretzky alongside Mike Krzyzewski and Myron McSorley. Of course, Wayne Gretzky told McNall that if McSorley was not in the deal, he would back out. So anyway, for exchange for Martin Jelena, underachiever Jimmy Carson, 3 first-round picks, and $15 million. While they would win the Cup in 1990, the Oilers were never the same without Gretzky. And Gretzky helped LA get into contention, even though Gretzky only led the Kings to one Stanley Cup final. That was '93, and when Montreal took them out. And that trade actually made sure that warmer city teams like Florida, aka Miami, Tampa Bay, and Dallas would get teams, whereas Canadians would be pissed off that we lose 2 franchises to Americans. Number 4, Brett Hall for Rob Ravage and Rick Wamsley. Calgary needed some blood trying to keep themselves in contention in the division with Edmonton, of course. So Calgary decided to give up Brett Hall, who was a promising rookie, but he didn't really have the work ethic and all that. Rob Ramage would go on to be a Leaf captain in the 90s and be responsible for the death of Keith Magnuson in a car crash. Rick Wamsley also played for the Leafs too, but he wasn't really any good. Brett Hall would be one of the greatest scorers in NHL history. In 11 seasons with the Blues, he scored 527 goals and 936 points. He then would give Dallas and Detroit a Stanley Cup. So basically he won a couple of cups, and Calgary just blew it up. Number 3, Patrick Waugh. That trade was just terrible. Waugh was a skilled goalie. He had issues that fans were upset by his lack of play, even before 92-93. And remember, I have the Patrick Waugh the Patrick Waugh autobiography. That they wanted to trade Patrick Waugh, but Waugh and his team led the 93 Habs to an improbable Stanley Cup run. Unfortunately, Patrick Waugh had issues with Mario Tremblay, who used to be a teammate of his with the Habitants. Some say it goes towards a misnomer in English, because Mario Tremblay didn't really have good English. He said, "Let's beat the toes off the Maple Leafs," or something like that. That was his first game as head coach when the Leafs lost on a last-second goal at the Montreal Forum against Montreal. And Mario Tremblay, well, there were some clashes. Tremblay thought he got the last laugh December 2nd, 95 against the Red Wings, who would go on to have the most wins in NHL history, 62 in one season. Mario Tremblay let him in for 9 goals instead of maybe 5 or even 6. Patrick Waugh got upset and decided to go to President Ronald Corey and tell him he was done in Montreal. And within a few days, Waugh and Captain Mike Keane were sent to Colorado for Jocelyn Thibault, Martin Brzezinski, and Andrei Kovalenko. And a lot of people were like, if the Colorado Rock Avalanche, were in Quebec, would they have traded him to Quebec? Or where he would have been traded to if it wasn't for Colorado being there and not in Quebec. So anyway, it was just the end of franchise glory. Montreal has had a few good runs for the Stanley Cup. In 2010 and 2014, they went to the conference finals, but fell flat against the Flyers and Rangers respectively. What would be a Colorado staple, putting Colorado over the edge and upsetting Detroit in the conference final, ironically enough. He was a multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time Conn Smythe winner, and helped the Avalanche to 2 cups in Colorado instead of Montreal. Number 2, Mark Messier for Louis DeBrusque, Kitcheners, Stephen Rice, and Bernie Nichols. It's just amazing. The Oilers decided to give up on Mark Messier in 91, but Messier wanted his contract restructured, if memory serves me correctly. But Edmonton decided to trade him to New York for 3 players to give him a youthful spark. Nichols, I have his card with the Rangers, so Nichols only lasted Nichols lasted a few years in Edmonton before being traded to the Devils, and nearly leading the Devils to the 94 Stanley Cup final until the Rangers got them. And I believe it was part of the 95 team that won the Stanley Cup, if memory serves me correctly. Stephen Rice and Louis DeBrusque did nothing for the Oilers. Messier would thrive in New York, winning the Hart Trophy for getting 500 points, and led the Rangers to a Stanley Cup victory in 94. And number 1, Doug Gilmour, the big 10-player trade to NL Trades. It was essentially Doug Gilmour for Gary Lehman, if you want to take the best names out of it. Although Calgary did send Rick Wamsley to Toronto for Jeff Reese, goaltending-wise. Doug Gilmour wanted out of Calgary for some reason. He was the guy who scored the cup-winning goal in 1989 for the Flames at the Montreal Forum. But Gilmour made his transformation in a Leafs jersey and scored 452 points in 7 seasons. And helped the Leafs win 2 chances at the Stanley Cup Final, losing in 93 to the Kings and 94 to the Canucks. What might have been for Toronto fans. And Calgary got nothing in the deal. Alex Godunyak didn't do anything. So anyway, that's all I've got for this top 15. Hope to see you soon.